Criticism won't get you down with this Stoic mindset. I get a lot of negative comments. Some are thoughtful, and some are, well, less so. For a long time, they used to get right under my skin, completely hijacking my thoughts for hours, sometimes even days. It felt like I was walking through a constant hailstorm of judgment. I started to wonder if there was a better way, not a way to avoid the storm, but a way to stand strong right in the middle of it. The ancient Stoics, a group of philosophers who were also emperors and playwrights, believed the secret to inner peace wasn't avoiding criticism, but transforming it. So, I decided to put it to the test. For 30 days, I challenged myself to adopt their ancient mindset, to see if I could turn this constant barrage of negativity into a superpower for growth. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how my experiment went, and how you can do it too. The universal sting of criticism. Before we dive into the experiment, let's get real about why criticism hurts so much. It's a universal human experience. Whether it's a harsh comment online, a sharp word from your boss, or a subtle jab from a friend, that sting is powerful. It feels personal because, in our minds, it is. It pokes at our deepest insecurities, our need for approval, and our fear of not being good enough. Our ego, that part of us so concerned with our self-worth, goes into full-on defense mode. It can feel like a direct attack on our very identity. We think, they don't understand me, or that's just not fair. This reaction is completely normal. We're social creatures, hardwired to care about what our tribe thinks of us. For most of human history, being kicked out of the group was basically a death sentence. So when we get criticized, our ancient brain sometimes reacts as if our very survival is at stake. But the pain often comes from the story we tell ourselves about the criticism. It's rarely the words themselves that wound us, but our interpretation of them. A simple critique can spiral into a huge narrative of failure and self-doubt. A core Stoic reminder is that what we hear is just an opinion, not an undeniable fact. What we see is just one perspective, not the absolute truth. But in the heat of the moment, we forget this. We let the opinions of others become our reality, and that's where the suffering starts. The goal of this challenge wasn't to pretend the sting doesn't exist, but to change my relationship with it, to shorten its lifespan, and ultimately, to use its energy for my own good. The ancient secret to inner peace. So, what is this ancient secret? It's Stoicism. Now, when you hear Stoic, you might picture someone emotionless, bottling everything up, but that's a modern myth. True Stoicism isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about understanding them so they don't control you. It's a practical philosophy, like an operating system for your mind, designed to build resilience and peace, no matter what the world throws at you. The cornerstone of Stoicism, the one idea everything else is built on, is the dichotomy of control. It's a simple but profound concept, championed by the philosopher Epictetus. It says that in any situation, there are things we can control and things we can't. What can't we control? External events, the weather, the economy, and most importantly for us, other people's opinions, actions, and words. You cannot control what someone thinks of you or what they decide to type in a comment box. Trying to is just a recipe for frustration. So, what can you control? Your own thoughts, your judgments, your responses, and your actions. That's it. That's your domain. The Stoic path is to pour all of your energy into what you can control and practice acceptance for what you can't. When you receive criticism, the comment itself is external, you can't control it. But your reaction, your assessment of it, and what you do next, that is entirely within your power. This single shift in perspective is the key. It moves you from being a passive victim to being an active architect of your inner world. This was the foundation for my 30-day challenge. My 30-day Stoic transformation, AR, the first superpower, building the inner citadel. The first superpower I focused on was building the inner citadel. Think of it as a fortress inside your mind, a place of calm and reason that external events can't break into. This power is built on focusing on what you control and performing an objective self-assessment. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That idea became my mantra. The criticism isn't the problem. My judgment of it is. Here's how I put it into practice. About a week in, I got a comment that said, "Your editing is so jarring and your voice is annoying. Unsubscribed. Ouch." In the past, that would have sent me down a rabbit hole of self-doubt. But this time, I paused. I retreated into my developing inner citadel. I took a breath and broke the comment down. "Your voice is annoying. Is my voice under my control? Not really. It's the voice I have. Is their perception of my voice in my control? Absolutely not. So, I must treat that part of the comment with indifference." Unsubscribed. Is their subscription in my control? Nope, that's their choice. Now, the last part. Your editing is so jarring. This was different. My editing is something I can control. This is where the objective assessment comes in. I had to separate my ego from the feedback. Instead of feeling attacked, I asked, "Is there any truth here?" I went back and watched my last few videos. And you know what? I saw a couple of transitions that were a bit too quick. The feedback, stripped of its emotional charge, was actually useful. It wasn't an attack. It was free information to help me improve. The practical takeaway here is an exercise the Stoics loved, the 2-column list. The next time you face criticism, grab a piece of paper. On the left, write down everything you cannot control: the other person's opinion, their tone, their mood. On the right, write down what you can control: your emotional response, your decision to learn from it, your next action. This simple act physically separates the noise from the signal and puts you back in charge. The second superpower, turning poison into power. The second superpower is what I call the alchemist's touch. This is the ability to take the raw, often toxic, material of criticism and turn it into something valuable, something that fuels your growth. The philosopher Seneca taught that obstacles aren't just in the way, they are the way. The Stoics saw challenges, including harsh criticism, as a kind of training for the soul. They didn't just tolerate hardship, they saw it as an essential ingredient for a good life. This reframes criticism from a personal attack into a session with a personal trainer. It's essentially free coaching. This leads to an attitude famously summed up by the philosopher Nietzsche with the phrase amor fati, a love of one's fate. While the term is more modern, the spirit behind it is deeply Stoic, loving everything that happens, good and bad, as a necessary part of your journey. So that nasty comment you received? A Stoic would say it was meant to happen, and your job is to love it and learn from it. During week 3, this idea got a serious test. Someone left a long, detailed comment tearing apart the structure of one of my videos. They called my arguments simplistic and my conclusion credible. The delivery was condescending, and it stung. My old impulse would have been to dismiss the person as a jerk and just delete it. But instead, I tried the alchemist's touch. I practiced amor fati by telling myself, this comment is here. It is part of my path. I will accept it and find the value in it. Then I pretended the comment wasn't from a stranger, but from a highly paid, very blunt consultant whose only job was to make my work better. I read it again, ignoring the tone and focusing only on the substance. And buried in all that condescension were two incredibly valid points. My argument did lack some depth, and my conclusion was a bit rushed. The poison of the delivery held the medicine of a good idea. I used that feedback to outline my very next video, making the structure more robust and the conclusion more powerful. The critic, without knowing it, had just made me a better creator. I turned their poison into my power. So, here's the takeaway. The next time you get criticism, especially the harsh kind, challenge yourself to find just 1% of truth in it. Ignore the 99% that might be rudeness or misunderstanding. Search for that single kernel of insight. This isn't about agreeing with them, it's about using them. It's about becoming an alchemist who can find gold in the mud. The third superpower, the discipline of a Stoic warrior. The third and final superpower is the discipline of a Stoic warrior. This isn't about aggression, it's about a disciplined internal practice. It's a commitment to constant self-improvement through two key habits, daily reflection and decisive action. Marcus Aurelius's famous book, Meditations, wasn't written for an audience. It was his private journal. He would write to himself to examine his own thoughts and actions from the day. This practice creates a vital feedback loop for growth. It's one thing to know a principle, it's another to consistently apply it. This became the absolute backbone of my 30-day challenge. Every night, I spent just 5 minutes with a notebook and answered 3 questions about any criticism I received that day. How did I react emotionally in the moment? How did I apply Stoic principles, or where did I forget to? What is one concrete action I can take tomorrow to improve, based on this? This practice was transformative. For instance, I noted I had reacted with a flash of anger to a comment questioning my research. That night, my reflection showed my ego was just bruised, and the comment was based on a simple misunderstanding. My decisive action for the next day. Instead of arguing, I replied with a calm, clarifying comment. It felt powerful. It felt disciplined. Another time, my reflection revealed that feedback about my video thumbnails was right. I'd been ignoring it because I didn't want to admit my designs weren't working. My decisive action was clear. I spent the next morning learning about better design and remade 3 of them. This is the difference between passive suffering and active growth. The reflection identifies the lesson, and the action integrates it. Your takeaway is to start your own tiny journaling practice. Each night, write down one thing that challenged you, and one thing you can do about it. Ask yourself, if I were to live today over again, how could I have responded with more wisdom or courage? This simple discipline, practiced consistently, builds a level of self-awareness that is a true superpower. The verdict: did it work? So, after 30 days of living like a Stoic, what was the verdict? Did I become an unshakable sage, immune to all negativity? Of course not. The sting didn't just disappear. What changed, profoundly, was my relationship with the sting. The criticism was the same, but I was different. The goal of Stoicism isn't to eliminate feelings, but to stop being a slave to them. Before, a harsh comment could ruin my day. Now, it's a blip on the radar, a piece of data to be processed. I learned to create a space between the comment and my reaction, and in that space, I found my freedom. The biggest shift was moving from a mindset of defense to a mindset of offense, not offense as in attacking back, but offense as in actively playing my own game. I started seeing criticism not as a threat, but as an opportunity to practice patience, an opportunity to find a kernel of truth, an opportunity to be grateful for free lessons on how I can get better. My worth is not determined by applause, nor is it diminished by boos. It's determined by my commitment to my own principles. This 30-day journey has fundamentally changed how I approach my work and my life. If these ideas resonated with you and you want more practical philosophy for modern challenges, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And now, a question for you. What is the single best piece of criticism you've ever received? The kind that stung at first, but ultimately made you better. Share it in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. Conclusion. Criticism is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Other people's words are just words. It is our judgment about those words that gives them their power. By building your inner citadel, learning to turn poison into power, and practicing the discipline of a warrior, you reclaim that power for yourself. You learn that the secret to peace isn't a quieter world, but a stronger mind. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Don't become bitter. Don't become defensive. Become better.